Welcome to Lab OPEX Live. I am so excited about today's topic. I have some very special guests with me. I have Erin Odegaard and Dr. Cameron Mirza, and we're going to talk about how we can use social media to promote the medical lab profession. And this is such an exciting topic. It's such an exciting time for us as medical lab professionals. A lot more people are moving from behind the scenes, being so our pride was we were the hero behind the scenes, and now we're getting ready to step up and step out. So thank you, Erin and Dr. Mirza. Thanks for being on the show today.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you. Always
All
excited
right.
to be
So we're going to jump in while people are coming in. As usual, you know the drill. Once you come in, just tell us who you are, where you're coming in from, and like this live and share it out with your connection. We're going to jump in and we're going to ask, starting with Erin, just tell the listeners a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your background before we jump in. And then we'll also ask Dr. Mirza to do the same.
Yeah, sure. So I am a medical laboratory scientist. I've been in the lab for 15 plus years. I'm starting to mumble a little bit because it's getting a little further than 15 at this point. But I've been in microbiology for most of that time. I'm transitioning into quality for the first time. Just like Lana was saying, it's time for us to be heroes of the lab, and you're going to be visible and show up, you have to sometimes step out of your comfort zone and be at the table. So I am officially going to start that at the end of the month. I'm a Mls Educator, so I've gotten to teach in a couple of MLS programs, and I start at the University of Arkansas Medical Branch teaching microbiology in the spring, and I'm a active volunteer with my local ASCLS chapter, and then with AACP, I'm part of their lab council, diversity inclusion, and the awesome social media committee.
Yes.
I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. Very active. And Dr. Mirza, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me again. My name is Kamran Mirza. I'm an associate professor of pathology and medical education and applied health sciences. I'm at Loyola University Chicago in the Stritz School of Medicine and the Parkinson School of Health Sciences and Public Health. Here, my day job is a leukemia and lymphoma pathologist. I'm also a founding program director of a medical laboratory sciences program, for which actually I went back and got MLS certification. So after my physician scientist training, I did MLS certification. And like Erin, I'm very excited to be here. I'm part of a lot of ASCP endeavors, including Patient Champions. I'm the chair of the social media committee. I'm on the Commission for Continuing Professional Development. And more importantly, over here, I'm a huge aficionado for social media. So it's really nice to be here.
Where do you find the time?
I have a very supportive spouse. Let's just put it that way.
Wow. Hopefully she's doing it with you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I try and push her to be more social media active. She has a Twitter account, so she's getting there. I like that.
Okay, awesome. So right now we have a couple guests already coming in. We're just gonna give a quick shout out to Walter Oliveira. He's saying so great to see and hear Erin and Cameron. And then there's Zoe Brooke. Great to meet such an active professional. Erin. And Walter is also saying both of these professionals are rock stars, amazing passion for lab and patients. Yeah, so we have amazing guests tonight. Whoever, if you're just go ahead and like this and share it out to your connection so we can have more people joining us, because we're getting ready to jump into the meat of our discussion, how we can use social media to promote the medical lab profession. And so we're just going to ask quickly for Erin. We're going to start with Erin again. How did you get involved in social media promoting your profession? When did it start? What happened? What's your backstory?
So like everybody else, initially I was just posting pictures of family and all the graduation stuff. And I was teaching at the University of North Florida in their medical lab science program. And I went to a meeting and they decided they were going to shut the program down. So I ended up creating a Facebook page and was able to kind of get more of the members active, started writing letter campaign. And I started with that Facebook page, but the other big thing that propelled me into Twitter was the ASCP has a 40 under 40 honoree program. So I joined that, and part of the engagement was getting into Twitter a little bit. So I started engaging in Twitter, and I have not looked back since. So it's been a great way to meet people. So that's kind of a dark start, but we weren't able to save the program locally, but it allowed me to connect with lots of different people that led to more advocacy for the state of Florida and for a bunch of different things. So it indirectly worked out.
Yeah, it was a good way. I mean, at least a good way to start to promote the profession. So great story. Dr. Mirza, how did you start getting involved in social media?
So interestingly, again, so for my personal social media, I'm an immigrant American. So for me, social media was the way for me to stay connected to family, right? And so it was more the Facebook and the Instagram thing. But actually, during my training as a pathology resident, I actually did a fellowship in medical education research, innovation, teaching, and scholarship. So it's called Merits Fellowship. And in it, my program director, who's the dean of the medical school at the University of Chicago now, she used to say, okay, you know what? Well, one of the components of this fellowship is that you need to be, let's make a Twitter account. And I was like, okay, this is kind of cool. And so the medical education community, in medicine at least, even at that time, was very active. And the pathology community, at that time had not discovered Dr. Jared Gardner, who eventually took, who wrote this really amazing volume of pathology and laboratory medicine social media. And so I joined in 2000, like really early on, Twitter. This is that's my poison of choice. And so, but to be honest with you, I didn't realize its impact till a couple of years later, actually, when Erin and I were in the same 40 under 40 class, and it did kind of promote us to start using it more on a professional basis. And then when I did that, I realized that it's the things that you can leverage from it are unbelievable, right? So from advocacy for the profession to being able to be more visible, to recruitment of more people into the profession, to marketing our programs, it's been invaluable. So yeah, that's basically kind of how I got started, and how now Walter knows, and I'm sure other people here know as well, that I'm a nut for social media now when it comes to pathology and laboratory medicine, because I think it is the great unifier. It puts everyone together, and we can, share ideas, and I think it's wonderful.
Awesome. I am getting FOMO every time I hear about Twitter.
There you go, Lana. Maybe one of the aims today for Erin and I.
You just came on my show to take me over there.
To get Lana on Twitter and active where she needs to be.
Because we know Walter's already on it, and I don't know if Blessing and Ollie Bryan are on it too, but if you're not, you need to be on it.
Yeah, it is the place to be.
I'm the only one. I made an account maybe about a month or two ago and never did anything with it. I think I connected with a few people, maybe Erin or somebody, and then I need to go back there. So Blessings is saying, glad to be here.
Hi, Blessing.
Ollie Bryan is saying, great. I also use social media to educate lab scientists.
Excellent.
Yes, and Walter is saying social media is one avenue to let people know this profession exists. You can share many case studies that attract people.
That's right.
And that's interesting. All right, so now we're talking about Twitter and everybody, seem like we're talking a lot about Twitter. Tell us about all the other channels for you, I know maybe for Erin may have different experience than you, Dr. Mirza. So what are the different social media channels that you're involved in? And tell us a little bit about the engagement from the medical lab professional, like which ones you find that there are more engagement from medical lab professionals. So start with Erin.
Okay, so the different channels, I get to do different things. So Twitter has been great I do a lot of microbiology clinical case studies. So I've gotten to educate students from all over the world, connected with professionals that I wouldn't have had the chance to connect with. So lab directors in micro, we go back and forth with case studies. And even with Twitter, I've been hooked up with different people for different journal articles. So that's been kind of fun. If it's wellness, so a lot of my wellness and health stuff, Facebook and Instagram have worked out really well. So our friend Tawana Wilson and I go back and forth with fitness challenges to kind of motivate each other. So if I'm doing a long bike ride or she's in the gym, we'll both post pictures because it's not only about just the lab science, but it's also the wellness and being at your best. And I recently discovered YouTube. So I am doing a good friend of mine, Tiffany Gill, or MedLab Lady Gill, and I are doing a national student cell bowl for hematology. So ASCP and her are partnered, and so we record a YouTube kind of like a wrap up on her YouTube channel talking about how the students have done on their cell division quizzes, and it's a lot of bad dad jokes and some hematology education. So it's been fun. I like the different platforms.
Oh, wow. So you're kind of everywhere depending on what the content is.
Yep.
You'll focus on different platforms.
Yep. And even your audience too, as well. What your
audience. Okay. And Dr. Mirza, your experience with different social media platforms?
Yeah, so I mean, Erin covers the gamut of it. I think that I completely agree. I think that I'll answer it in the sense that I find that many of our professionals are on Twitter now, slowly and steadily. But what I'm finding is that our students may not be on Twitter yet. They are probably more the Instagram, TikTok, folks. So I do have a TikTok account, which I literally never use. And I have, you know what? I actually made one TikTok for a lab week last year. Or like 2 years ago, maybe, I don't even remember. And that, it got like a couple of likes, so which is very exciting. But, I feel like I'm too old for TikTok and I can't do that cool stuff that other people can do. But I do have an Instagram account, which is Chicago Path Doc. I kind of cross post things a lot. If I post something on Twitter and then, a couple of days later, I'll cross post it. So I think that if people follow me on both things, they'll end up seeing the same thing twice. But what I've realized is that our medical students and our pre-medical laboratory science students are more so on Instagram than they are on Twitter. And then slowly, as they become more and more into the professional world, engaging in the professional world, they have a Twitter presence. And so I in trying to promote pathology for medical students and also medical laboratory science for biology majors, I realized that they probably are more on Instagram. And so that's why I've tried to be more active there. But other than that, everything that Erin said, I do the same. I don't have a very specific YouTube channel. I do have videos that I've put on Knowledge In, Knowledge Out platform, which is the Kiko platform. And I'm really trying to develop more. And as you may know, Lana and Erin knows, we have a website which basically ended up being because of social media, which is pathellective.com. And Pathelective is a site where medical laboratory scientists, pathologist assistants, medical students, pathology residents can all come and learn from videos there.
Okay, interesting. So I am on LinkedIn. Nobody said LinkedIn.
Sorry, yes.
Well, we're on LinkedIn right now.
So maybe
we assume that LinkedIn goes without saying.
Yes, it does. Yeah, I met lots of great people through LinkedIn.
Okay, so that's really great to know. So I know you talk about where you are. So which ones of those platforms you think that, I know based on the demographic, maybe the age and other things, but in general, where you get most of your engagement?
I would probably say if it's education, it's probably on Twitter at this point. I did try to, for a local micro meeting, I tried to get some of our members to use Twitter, but they weren't as familiar with it. I actually had to get with my lab director and kind of try to help her through how to use it. So she got some education, but I'd probably say most of it's through Twitter at this point. It definitely has become a bit of a home in a sense.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's the same. It's the same for me. I think it's also because, maybe I'm not familiar with the way we can quantify engagement on other social media channels. But for me on Twitter, it's kind of easy. The inbuilt analytics are one thing, but then there's a healthcare hashtag project where, you have simpler statistics and analysis of engagement. And I think that that's kind of helpful for like our meetings, et cetera, to kind of look at those numbers. Not that those numbers truly mean engagement, but we need to have some sort of rubric to kind of figure out like how engagement is. And so if engagement is by analysis of tweets, like by how many people are clicking into them, how many people are answering polls, I think it's a biased answer because my following is the largest on Twitter and therefore my engagement is the most there. But I think that there are lab professionals like I like give a shout out to Sarah Garner. She's a pathologist assistant and program director at Tulane. She has like, oh my God, her Instagram following she's a goddess on Instagram, right? And so she's also on Twitter, but then her following isn't that high on Twitter comparatively, right? And so naturally, when she puts something out on Instagram, it's the number of people. Like, literally today I was visiting my alma mater and I met some pathologist assistants there, and I said, oh, I met Sarah Garner at ASCP, and they were like, oh wow, she's a superstar, right?
She's a star,
right? She's a star, like a celeb, she's a laboratory celebrity.
Yeah,
and that's what we need. Those are the faces we need. Those are the names we need, right, to promote the laboratory. So I think that it's invaluable.
Awesome. So I think what I'm hearing too, it depends on where you kind of cultivate your audience. So if you spend a lot of time, your frequency, you're building that audience, you're there, your consistency, then you'll probably get that engagement. So it may depend on what you prefer. And so you'll actually share content there, and then based on your consistency, you'll build that audience and just continue to share whatever it is you're sharing, if it's case studies, whatever it is for you. So I don't think there's a specific platform that you could say for medical lab professionals, that's where we'll find them. It depends a lot on their age, it depends on their interests, and it depends on you, how you cultivate. Because I know that there's a lot of Facebook groups that are huge. And I have Angela Sedonia come on my show. She has a big leadership group on Facebook. There's other Facebook groups. And so I'm hearing Instagram which I didn't realize that Instagram has a lot of engagement, and then Twitter. And then for me, LinkedIn. LinkedIn is my thing. And so I suppose it doesn't matter if you choose a platform and you're consistently putting out content and the same messaging, and somebody can connect with that message, and they'll engage. So let's hear what the audience are saying. So
Lona, I had a question. Didn't you connect with Tawana and Stephanie through LinkedIn, and that's how your Elaborate podcast started out?
Yes. So a lot of my lab professional connection happened on LinkedIn. So I suppose any of the platforms will do. And then I reached out to Taiwan. I realized she had a podcast, just a leadership podcast. And I was thinking of starting a lab podcast. And I reached out initially, it was just conversation because I realized we had similar interests. And then when Taiwan started thinking, why don't we do a lab podcast together? She's like, you can still do your stuff. We can just do another. And I'm like, okay. And we did this, and I didn't bother to do mine. I'm like, why don't we just do it together? Okay. And I think she had reached out to other people at a time. more people and they were busy, but we all decided we'll do it together. And a lot of collaboration I've had on that started on LinkedIn.
I just love sharing.
That can happen on any platform.
I love sharing that one because the three of you have never met, but through social media, you were able to. It sounds like you've been friends forever.
Yeah, you'd think, right? Yeah. So the social media connection can be lasting. So let's see what everybody else saying. Zoe was saying that she's on Twitter. Oh, she has a Twitter account like me.
Yeah. I just checked out your Twitter account, Lana. This is awesome. You just joined a couple of months ago, so you have some time.
Yeah, she has an account. So Zoe, you can do something with it. Mm-hmm. She's trying to see how she can actually use it. How do you present a case study in 144 characters? Mm-hmm. Or does Twitter not limit you anymore?
Twitter does still limit you, Zoe. You're right. But there are many ways around it. Actually, if you check out some of Erin's posts or other pathology posts, you can, if you limit the discussion to very you have to make it very succinct. But if you really want to put a lot of information in there, the way I do it is just put it in the picture, because it can give you 4 images. So for example, if you wanted to give a whole clinical vignette, you could actually put it in as an image, right? So the first image could be the clinical vignette, the second could be the lab findings, the third could be another lab finding or whatever. So you're right, it is like 260 characters or something. But sometimes I find that if you're able to fit the question in 260 characters, people will engage with it more, because I think that everyone is just really used to what's the meat, this isn't like, a really heavy text that they look at. This is stuff that they're scrolling through, right? So if they see something interesting and it's short and sweet, then the engagement, I think, will be more.
No, I definitely agree with that. And then what I'll do also is I'll have follow-up information that if I'm not getting if I have additional facts, I'll do the initial tweet with 3 or 4 pictures and some key biochemicals and clinical presentation. But then the next line of the tutorial will be talking about if it's endemic in an area, and then usually for a couple hours or a day, there'll be a lot of engagement that way, and you can keep kind of adding on to it if it's a interesting topic and you get it going. But yeah, the pictures definitely do help. And you're right, people are just at lunch flipping through and they're like, oh, this is a cool case, or oh, this is an amazing, and it's crazy the conversations you can start. I have 3 or 4 micro directors that we go back and forth with on just, I had a whole series on Vibrio because my friend Melissa Miller at UNC did her PhD thesis on that. So I had a bunch of cases over the summer being in Florida. So it was just the summer of Vibrio for a minute, and we just went back and forth and had a good time.
I'll go copy you and see how you do it so I can learn from you. Maybe Zoe need to connect with you there and then learn, because Zoe has a lot to share with QC and stuff. Walter is saying, I advocate following a professional society like ACP on Twitter. It helps keep current if there are issues that need to be addressed. You also find a community of people who share the avocation. Let's do some more quick ones, and then we can go into a lot of these benefits that Walter is alluding to. Okay, path elective is fantastic. Jennifer is saying, Lona, you're such a great lab advocate, and to collaborate with Dr. Mirza, brilliant. I'm excited to meet Erin as well. Thanks so much, Jennifer. And Zoe is saying, thank you. That's brilliant use of image. All right, so let's go into some of the great benefits of being on social media as medical lab professionals to advocate, and maybe ways in which that others could learn from. I know, even for us who are introverts, that's a good way in which we can express, and we don't have to be on a stage or, in a group with people and still be able to advocate for the profession. So I don't know who want to start to give us some of those benefits and maybe some of real life scenarios for you with some of those benefits.
Do you want me to go first, Cameron?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. So no, it definitely does make you a little less introverted. Our friend Stephanie Whitehead, she actually says she's introverted, and I do not believe her at all. But she says social media has kind of made her come out of her shell a little bit. At least that's what she's told me. Some of the benefits,
I want to say the same too.
Yeah. No, just some of the benefits I get from Tawana. I get leadership tips from her constantly through social media. Usually it's, if I'm not having a great day, I can go on there and Taiwana's got some practical real life advice where I'm like, oh, okay, it is not that bad. Just to kind of refocus a little bit. But education has been great. I do my Twitter case studies, and I've met so many great microbiologists that way. I've actually had a editor from Clinical Laboratory Magazine. We went back and forth talking about interprofessional communication on Twitter, and then through LinkedIn, Lana, and have a couple articles lined up to write for that magazine. So it gave me those opportunities to kind of expand my horizons a little bit. So that's been kind of nice. You do have this community of laboratory professionals. So it was nice. We were live at the AACP annual meeting last week, and I got to meet people that I talk to on Twitter all the time. So I met Dr. Rodney Rhodes for the first time. I got to meet Tawana for the first time in person, and you feel like you've been like they're the people that you have coffee with in the morning, so you have that close connection with them. There's just so many. I can't even between fitness and health and even just like this past Sunday, I got back and I got to record a YouTube video with my friend Tiffany Gill and Catherine Golab, our vice chair of social media. And we talked about hematology. That's not my strongest subject, but we talked about that and made cheesy football references. But without social media, I wouldn't have those connections or be able to meet people that I would have known.
Right. Is that the cat?
Yes, there he is. There's Darwin, my little scientist. His attention.
Probably timing you.
There is food down there, so he should be fine.
Dr. Mirza, for you, for using what benefits either from your experience and what others could learn so that they could use it for their benefits. What are some of the benefits that you experience using social media for the medical lab profession?
Yeah, so I use it for education. That's my primary goal. I think that, like actually Walter put in the chat that, like with all technology, you must be thoughtful and have a balanced approach. I like that. And he said, it's good to look up from the device and engage in the world and people around you. I completely agree with that. And the reason I'm bringing it up is because what I find is that I've always thought of it as a supplement. So whatever, it doesn't take away the fact that we have to do advocacy, at Capitol Hill or like with our, patient-facing colleagues or with our hospital administration, but it's a supplement. It helps supplement everything that we're doing. So we are kind of behind this, what I call this microscopic curtain, right? We're like we're in the lab, the basement curtain or whatever. And so if we're not going to see where our impact is happening directly, which is with patients. And so since our patients don't see it, we have to find avenues in order for us to kind of reflect where all of those benefits are. And I think that being visible on social media, it's a great unifier, like I mentioned before, where, if you are patient-facing, not patient-facing, if you're a nurse, a pharmacist, or whatever, you have the same platform that other people have. So what I've done is that I've been able to, we teach, right? So we market our programs. I've collaborated with so many people. I've literally written papers, so scholarly activity, written papers with people I've never met. I think Tawana and I are writing and Aaron, we're writing a book together. I met Tawana this week at ASCP.
Wow.
We have done, I literally, when I met her, I was just like, I did a double take and I was like, Lana, I think we have never met in person. And she's like, yep, we've never met in person, but I really thought, I feel like she's like my sister, I mean,
Right.
so we've never met. And so from doing things such as, proposing, sessions at annual meetings, we've proposed sessions and they've been accepted. And I ended up meeting the people I proposed them with at the meeting. So these are like invaluable things, right? This idea, but I totally agree that this is all a supplement. It doesn't take away that obviously the engagement we have in person, we can't lose that. But I think that this last year, because of the pandemic, it's really pushed this to front and center, right? Because even though our in-person interactions were taken away, if anything, it allowed social media to thrive more. And those of us who are already kind of in it, were able to benefit more from it and to hopefully, literally like Aaron and I, we joke about, we basically are always selling the benefits of social media, like wherever we go. And, so we might be considered a little bit crazy, but I think it's valuable, right? Nobody can tell me, Lana, later on that, oh, Kamran, you kept it a secret.
Right.
Because trust me, I did not keep it a secret.
Right.
You were there.
We've been telling everyone, we've been shouting it from the rooftop. So
Right.
I think as we look forward now in this kind, hopefully very soon, a post-pandemic world, right? We're getting back together. Social media could not in any way, shape, or form replicate the beauty of what it was in ASCP when we met together. That's a completely different thing. But it can be a supplement that keeps us going till those in-person interactions happen. And I hope, Walter, you're happy with that answer.
Yeah. Mona, I actually thought about, I've had a case where I had a aspiring medical laboratory scientist. Her mom reached out to me through LinkedIn and asked me to talk to her and the medical laboratory science. So it can even be mentorship. So that's even a huge part of it too, actually getting to mentor.
Right.
I love that. When we do, so for example, for the MLS program, I go out to, different biology majors to different schools. And, we always leave our card and we say, oh, follow us on social media. Our MLS program has a Twitter account. I obviously have one. Our program manager has one. And actually what I find is that many of these students end up creating accounts and following us. And now indirectly, if I'm talking about like a cool hematology case or how we made a difference in a patient's life, or if there's a publication that they might like, indirectly, whether they like it or not, we're advocating for the profession to them, So it's a nice inbuilt way of, just allowing all of that advocacy to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually how I keep up with journal papers too. I'll follow Journal of Clin Micro or ASM, and a new paper will come out and I'll just be able to click on it and keep track with that. So it keeps me current as well.
Yeah, I like that you're exposing the students to some of these cases or telling them follow you. And basically that will help them to see, is this something that I'd really love to do? Or is this something that I'm really intrigued about? So the more exposure, they'll decide like, wow, this is something that I'd want to get involved in now that I'm following. Or maybe some of them may decide that this is not for me, but at least you're giving them some exposure, maybe not, just a little bit of exposure to what is it that, they would expect. Okay, we're going to look at cells. We're going to actually identify if the patient have cancer or whatever. I'm intrigued. Maybe I should learn more. So that's really interesting. And, so there's so many, it just shows that so many ways in which you can advocate. It doesn't, like you're saying, you may go on the Hill, you may just talk about your profession, you may just encourage other professionals, because sometimes, like, I was talking at the ACP about advocacy, sometimes you have to even advocate to people who are already in the profession to keep them. It's like as leaders, sometimes there are things that you have to do. So there's just so many different areas in which sometimes you're advocating to other people who are in healthcare. Sometimes you're advocating to your administrators, you're advocating to either attract or retain people, or maybe you're probably advocating to bring your value for the profession. So the more people see us and understand what we do and what we bring, the more it change their perceived value of who we are because they understand more about what we offer. When they don't know who you are, it's easy to kind of have an idea like, oh, there's not much that they do until they understand what we have to offer. So I love that you're using different ways in which to expose the profession. Let's hear what our audience have to say. Favor is just joining. He's saying nice joining. And Walter said that as with all technology, you must be thoughtful and have a balanced approach. It is good to look up from your device and engage in the world. People are around you. Yeah, not just keep your head down and keep working. I think that's what we've been doing for years.
Yeah.
I'm thinking that people would already know what we do.
Yeah.
No, they don't see us. So they think everything
No.
that's done is the physician and the nurse. It's the people that we see.
If you're crossing the street, put the phone down. It's okay to you can tweet when you get across the street.
Yeah.
But I've had lab professionals say that they feel seen and they feel visible on Twitter. I've been able to connect with some blood bankers that we end up doing ACP had like birds of a feather sessions. And two of the speakers I found off of Twitter, Chloe Thompson and Jenny Becker. And we had a great conversation with our former president, Dr. Kim Sanford, and like we were sharing animal pictures and wedding photos and all that fun stuff just from me seeing a post from them being on Twitter, or Dana Baker and I seeing another member posting about something else. So it does give you those connections and visibility.
Awesome. Andrea is saying passive decision support tool.
Right.
Is it maybe I don't get it. I know that she's IT. I'm thinking decision support tool. I'm thinking more a technology kind of thing. Maybe Andrea could help me. Maybe did you get it, Aaron? It's a technology, I suppose. When I think of decision support tool, I'm thinking more about technology. So
Right.
maybe
I don't know what Andrea does in her day job, but like, Dr. Pitkus, I think that, the idea, for me, it's like, okay, well, if you're confused about a certain thing, like, you see a malaria parasite but it's a passive tool to, all right, it's about using Twitter, right? Exactly. So, I think that, if you're confused about a particular diagnosis and you see something, it happens all the time. I have a case which is like interesting and I'm like, oh, I wonder what this is. And then, and I kind of just look up those findings on Twitter. Like, it's so weird. It's like CME.
Oh, wow.
And it can kind of help, it can kind of help you. In fact, now I've become that person where, because of the number of years that I've been on it, I can say when I sit with my residents or my MLS students, I'm like, oh, I tweeted about this, or so-and-so tweeted about this, look it up. And they can just search it. And, it's like an encyclopedia. So
yeah, I've done the same thing where I'm like, I remember this case and I've actually flipped back through my tweets just to find the image and the biochemicals so I could go back and do that.
Exactly.
That's awesome. Awesome. It was inspiring to read tweets during the ACP annual meeting from different talks, like the key points, nuggets of truth, phrases that resonated with me. Dr. Mercer saying we have to do better in the area of diversity, a challenge, a truth, a call to action.
Right. No, thank you all. Yeah. It was awesome. That session was so inspired. Like, it was such an honor to do that session. And, and this idea of we have to do better effectively is, of course, like, we have to put our money where our mouth is. Like, a lot of people talk the talk about like diversity, equity, and inclusion, but we have to, walk the walk. Like, it has to not be just in words, but also in action. And somebody told me, that, it really resonated with me. And that's why I shared it at the talk, the fact that, whatever we think we've done, we have to still do better, and that I think is something that really, stayed with me. And I'm really glad it stayed with Walter. And like, we're all like-minded individuals, and hopefully we can now continue to spread this message regarding that. And again, social media is a great platform for that. Right? Because, look at how much recognition, look at how much promotion, look at how much marketing, look at how much, look at how much you can achieve. It may not result in all the anti-racism that we're looking for, right? But but it's a step in the right direction.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, I remember you talking about the diversity in leadership, because I think a lot of people may think that we have actually achieved diversity, but it's not everywhere. So, yeah. And I didn't go to SCP, but I saw it on social media.
There you go. On LinkedIn, probably. Yeah.
See, there you go.
Yeah, for me, when I think of social media, also, I have to shout out to the podcast, because I'm a co-host of a podcast. So there's so many aspects of, in which we can reach out and talk, like with a podcast, and even like shows like this, just collaborating and amplifying our voices, because like with Lab OPEX Live, you get so many diverse guests that are lab folks that talk about different areas of interest. It was interesting to hear Zoe's talk on QC. We usually don't get a lot of technical talks, but we talk about usually challenges in the profession and things that we can do to improve. And a lot of people who are in my connection who may not be in the lab, a lot of them now have a lot of awareness about the lab. They're like, wow, we didn't realize that there's so many challenges in terms of us being recognized or valued, or some of the challenges that we're having. And some people like you, Joe, just didn't know that the amount of time of training that's involved in being prepared as medical lab professional. So having these discussions, so we have people who are on the show who are inviting other people to their show that are not necessarily lab show. So they, people who have been guests on this show get invited to other show to talk about the lab. So social media, is like really great. I know for LinkedIn, there's a lot of leaders, CEOs, maybe entrepreneurs, but a lot of people who are in other professions who are looking for promotion. So there's still a lot of lab people on LinkedIn and Facebook and everywhere else. So wherever it is that you choose, I think, and you have to advocate in whatever way you feel comfortable doing. For me, it's more about promoting the profession, collaborating with other professionals, amplifying our voices, mentoring. So like, right now I'm mentoring in Africa, and all of that happened because of, social media, and even opportunities with ACP and other places, like some even local chapters who invite me to speak, or, some of the nationals. If I know that if it wasn't for me showing up on social media, I probably wouldn't have those invitation and the opportunity to mentor leaders, because my focus is mentoring leaders into operational excellence leaders. I probably would not have that. So I'd encourage as many people, even to start out with tweeting or start out with small posts, and eventually, get more comfortable to do more. But this is a great opportunity. So
looking for
it's so funny. It's so funny that you were asking us about it, and like look at you. You're just testimony. It's testimony to the fact that, and and I love how you said show up, right? I mean, showing up is the battle, right? Imagine, and this is just through your LinkedIn, for example. I can only imagine how fire you will be once you're going to be on Twitter, because we're going to make it happen.
I'm looking for
I don't have time, but I'm going to try. But yeah, on LinkedIn is like sometimes sometimes twice a week I'm speaking at an event because of LinkedIn. Even like next week, Monday, actually, I'm speaking, and I'm going to actually speak about our profession, and that's on a totally different platform. And so it's bringing visibility to other areas so people know more about the medical lab profession. And I know there's somebody who is a healthcare recruiter who focus a lot on nursing and physician, but he's been on this show. And since then, he's been allowing even a lot of my guests to talk more about medical lab profession, and that was never his focus initially. So yes. So let's hear what our audience are saying. We're almost wrapping up. That was Andrea was saying about explaining a little bit about the decision support tool that's linked to the post. Yeah. So it floats to the top. Okay. And that's how Aaron explained it. So Walter is saying, join us at the ACP meeting next year in Chicago. So I was here. I was at the meeting this year, but I was virtual.
Well, no, can I make an announcement about the annual meeting?
Okay. Yes.
So for our centennial 100-year meeting, if you are an ACP member, you can attend the meeting for free.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely for free.
That sounds
Everyone
great.
sign up. Yep.
So promo, sign up as a member so you can attend for free. Okay, so now that we are nearing the end, I know we've been talking about all the social media channels, but maybe we could talk about, I don't know if you could probably put it in the note. We have this continues, so you can always put in comments. But if you want them to connect with you on your social media channel or wherever that you want the audience to connect with you, this is a great opportunity for us as medical lab professionals to come together on different platforms to elevate, to amplify our voices in different areas. And so let the audience know how they can keep in touch and learn
Can we
more.
put it in the private chat? Let me see. I don't know if I have access to the comments.
Oh, you don't have for the other chat. Okay. So that's fine. What happened is once you can always go in and continue with the comments, and you can say it now, maybe for some people who want to write it down, and then we can always put it in the chat. So
Sure.
Aaron, you want to go?
Yeah, sure. So you can follow me on Twitter. It's at Odie, ODIE 0222. So if you remember Garfield and Odie, and then 0222. And then LinkedIn, of course.
And actually, you know what I'll do? I will change my display name. There you go. That's my Twitter account.
Oh,
okay.
Good idea.
Sounds good. So that's mostly where you'll find Dr. Mirza. And Zoe has a question. She wanted to know if the deadline passed for the workshop. That's for next. To submit for the workshop, maybe as a presenter. Is that what?
Yeah, I think that's the question. So to be honest with you, I don't know, Aaron, if you know anything, but Zoe, so for this year's meeting, what the committee did was that they actually curated the entire meeting. And then based on the topics that they wanted, they solicited speakers. And then those speakers gave their proposals. So that was a completely flipped model of how we've done it from the past. Oh, and maybe she's asking about the deadline. So Walter's already asked if it's about the electronic thing. But for next year, I don't know if there's already been a call for proposals yet or not. I'm actually not aware. But I'm pretty certain that we'll find out through social media.
I've been told not yet.
Okay. So Zoe, just keep looking out. Not yet.
Yeah. So it's not yet, because I was thinking of also submitting something, and I haven't seen an avenue to submit it yet. I think they're still recovering from this year's annual meeting, and so very soon they'll probably get it out there.
Yeah, I don't know how they did it. They did a full path to Boston and then live education. So it was like 170 sessions total. So
that was a lot. That's a lot of work.
Yeah,
thank you guys. You guys did a lot of work. Thank you. And it's recorded. We can go on and check them out. So that's great.
Yep.
Any last words?
I would say, if I can, I mean, I don't want to be the gloom and doom. Social media can be pretty negative, so you have to be very careful when you're, promoting the lab, and there are different ways to navigate that. I think that anecdotally, in my experience, I've never, knock on wood, never had a bad experience thus far. I think that if we stay compliant with patient safety standards, etc., and as long as we stay clear away from controversial topics, for example. I mean, if you want to do controversial topics, that's great. You can totally do them. But if you want to curate your social media channels, just for example, just for education or for promotion of the profession, I found that I haven't had a negative, instance. There are people who've had negative instances, and that can be horrible. But I would say that in general, if you're trying to create a professional social media presence, the positives outweigh the negatives, and so that's just a word of caution that I would probably put in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Aaron?
I would agree that it's a great way to promote education and a sense of community. If social media can get negative, but if you do see it start to get negative, be the positive voice. If you know that there's a misconception there, say, well, this group does do scholarships, they do this, try to redirect the conversation. In some cases you can't, but just try to be positive, make the most of it, educate, advocate, and you never know where it'll take you. It's probably going to be somewhere fun.
Yeah. I think that you'll get more positive than negative.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, I've never had any bad experience on my social media at all. So I think, yeah, that's a great sign.
Yeah. You're doing something right, Lana. That's excellent.
Thank you. So Nancy is saying that must be careful what's shared on social media, but it can be powerful to reaching many people.
So
yeah, Nancy does a great job with that too.
So, can I just say, check out Nancy's profile picture. She is a boss, right? I mean, just the visual of, that picture.
The lab coat.
The way she is standing in that picture, she comes across as a boss, and she comes across as a lab boss, right? I mean, isn't that powerful? The fact that, look at that. She's a queen right there. So the point is that this is the type of advocacy that you can do indirectly, even with the images that you put out. It basically takes the person into the lab, right? And I think that these are just, it's just so valuable. Walter, your picture is really cool too, by the way. I like the board.
Yeah, it's good too, Walter.
Okay, guys, thank you so much. It was so much fun. Thanks for sharing your experiences, and hopefully others will follow to get engaged. I know we probably were talking to the choir, but share this out with your connections. This is actually going to be on YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Follow me on my Facebook page. I have a Lab OPEX page on Facebook. I have a Lab OPEX Leaders page on YouTube also. And on LinkedIn, I am on LinkedIn. So we are all over the place trying to promote the profession. And let's all connect and amplify our voices.
Look forward to it.
Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Aaron, and thanks, beautiful audience. Have a great one until we see you next Thursday evening.